They said fate was a whisper in the dark, until it became a roar that shattered marble and pride alike. The revelation came not in prophecy, but in blood and ash, when the wildest alpha to ever walk the northern wastes kicked down gilded doors and made his claim before 1,000 witnesses who'd gathered to watch a broken girl bleed. The grand hall of the Silverpaw Pack reeked of lilies and lies. Elara knelt on the cold obsidian floor, her threadbare servant's dress, a faded gray thing that had seen too many washings, pooling around her like dirty water. The fabric was so thin her knees screamed against the unforgiving stone, but she didn't move, couldn't move. Not with Alpha Corwin's hand fisted in her hair, forcing her head down so low her forehead nearly kissed the ground. Above her, the vaulted ceiling soared 3 stories high, painted with scenes of legendary wolves running beneath golden moons. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across the assembled pack. 200 wolves in their finest silks and pressed suits, their eyes glittering with that particular hunger that came from watching someone fall from grace they'd never possessed in the first place. "Let the record show," Corwin's voice boomed, amplified by the acoustic perfection of the hall, "that this Omega, this mute creature who has lived off our pack's charity for 19 years, has committed the highest treason." Elara's throat burned with words that would never come. The scar tissue across her vocal cords, a gift from the fire that had killed her parents when she was 6, ensured her silence was as permanent as the stone beneath her. She'd learned to speak with her hands, with her eyes, with the careful tilt of her head. But here, now, with Corwin's grip bruising her scalp, even those small dignities were stripped away. At a 1.0x pace, Luna Vivian stood beside her mate, resplendent in a gown of silver thread that probably cost more than Elara would earn in 10 lifetimes of scrubbing floors. Her perfect face was arranged in an expression of wounded betrayal, one delicate hand pressed to her chest. "I trusted her," Vivian said, her voice breaking just so, a performance worthy of the stage. "I brought her into my personal service. I protected her from those who said a mute Omega had no place in the Luna's chambers. And this is how she repays me? By stealing?" The lie sat between them like a corpse. 3 days ago, Elara had been polishing the Luna's vanity when she'd found it. A small vial of clear liquid tucked behind the mirror, labeled in a hand she didn't recognize. Moonsbane, a poison so potent that 3 drops would stop an alpha's heart within minutes. She'd stared at it, her pulse thundering, trying to understand why the Luna would have such a thing. Then she'd heard the voices in the hallway. "During the harvest moon ceremony," a male voice had whispered, "in her wine, the alpha will think it's his heart finally giving out. He's old enough that no one will question it." "And you're certain this can't be traced back to me?" That had been Vivian, her musical voice stripped of all its public sweetness. "The Omega will take the fall. I'll plant the vial in her quarters tonight." Elara had made her choice, in the space between heartbeats. She'd pocketed the vial, knowing that without evidence, Vivian would simply obtain more poison. Better to have it in her possession, to find someone who could test it, prove what it was meant for. Except Vivian had been smarter than that. She'd screamed that very night that her mother's priceless diamond necklace had been stolen. The guards had torn through Elara's tiny room and found the vial, which Vivian had immediately claimed was a rare perfume, a family heirloom worth a fortune. No one had tested it. No one had listened to Elara's frantic signing, her desperate attempts to explain. Who believe a mute Omega over a Luna? The punishment for theft, Corwin announced, is exile and marking. She will be branded as a thief and cast beyond our borders before moonrise. A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Elara's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. She'd give them nothing. Not her tears, not her fear, not her... The doors exploded inward. Not opened. Not pushed. Exploded. The massive oak and iron slabs, each weighing half a ton, reinforced with silver and spelled by the pack's best witches, blew off their hinges with a sound like the world ending. They hit the marble floor with a crash that shook dust from the ancient rafters, the impact so violent that the nearest wolves stumbled backward, hands flying to their ears. Through the settling dust and the shocked silence, he walked. At a 1.0 pace, in a storyteller style. Kael Ashenblade. Even Elara, who'd spent her life in the shadows, knew that name. The rogue Alpha King. The wolf who'd unified the northern wastes. A territory so brutal and wild that civilized packs spoke of it in whispers. He had no pack in the traditional sense. He had a kingdom of rogues, outcasts, and wolves too feral for pack politics. Rumors said he'd killed his first alpha at 15, that he could shift faster than thought, that he'd never taken a Luna because no wolf alive could match his savagery. He stood 6.5 feet of coiled violence, dressed in black leather that had seen real battle, scarred and worn, not decorative. His hair was dark as a raven's wing, pulled back from a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by an angry god. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes? Gods! His eyes! They were amber shot through with veins of molten gold, and they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. The air in the hall changed. It thickened, became heavy with something primal and inevitable, like the moment before lightning strikes. Every wolf in the room felt it, the pressure of an alpha so dominant that their hindbrain screamed to submit or flee. At a 1.0x pace, Corwin released Elara's hair as if burned, stepping back. King Kael, this is unexpected. We had no notice of your visit. If you'd sent word, we would have prepared a proper... Silence. One word. Spoken quietly. But it cut through Corwin's bluster like a blade through silk. And the Silverpaw Alpha's mouth snapped shut, his wolf cowering despite his human pride. As Kael moved forward, his boots echoing in the stunned quiet, he walked past the assembled pack as if they were furniture, his attention never wavering from Elara. Wolves scrambled out of his path. A beta who moved too slowly received a look that had him plastering himself against the wall, throat bared in instinctive submission. He stopped 3 feet from where she knelt. Up close, he was devastating. Power radiated from him in waves that made her skin prickle, made her wolf, quiet thing that it was, weakened by years of poor nutrition and suppression, lift its head for the first time in her memory. His scent hit her like a physical force, pine smoke and winter wind, and something wild and clean that made her want to close her eyes and just breathe. Stand up. She blinked up at him, uncertain. Corwin had commanded her to kneel. Was she allowed to? I said, stand. Up. Each word was bitten off, edged with a growl that vibrated in her chest. Elara rose on shaking legs, her body obeying before her mind caught up. She barely came to his shoulder. This close, she could see the scars that crossed his throat, claw marks from some long-ago battle. Could see the way his pupils had dilated until his eyes were more black than gold, fixed on her with a focus that felt like being seen for the first time in her life. "What is your name?" His voice had gentled fractionally, though it still carried enough command to make her bones ache. She touched her throat, then her lips, the sign for "I cannot speak." Something flickered across his face, rage, maybe, or pain. His jaw clenched hard enough that she heard his teeth grind. "Who did that to you?" She hesitated, then signed. "Fire. Long ago. Not important." "Everything about you is important." He said it like a vow, like a threat. Then he turned that terrible attention to Corwin. "You, explain why this Omega is on her knees in the middle of what appears to be a trial without proper representation or defense." At a 1.0x pace, in a storyteller style. Corwin had recovered some of his composure, drawing himself up. "With respect, King Kael, this is pack business. The girl is a thief, and her name." What? "You will use her name, or I will remove your tongue and you can join her in silence." Kael's voice had dropped to a register that bypassed reason and spoke directly to the prey animal brain. "What is it?" "Elara," Vivian supplied, stepping forward with a gracious smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Her name is Elara, Your Majesty. And while we appreciate your concern, this really is an internal matter. She stole from me a family heirloom. We have proof. The item was found in her possession." Kael's eyes narrowed. "What item?" Vivian gestured, and a guard brought forward the vial, now sitting on a velvet cushion like it was actually precious. A perfume, irreplaceable, my grandmother's. Elara's hands moved before she could stop them, signing frantically. "Poison, moonsbane, for the alpha. I found it. I took it to stop." "She's claiming it's poison," someone in the crowd translated, laughing. "As if the Luna would." "Test it." Vivian's smile froze. "I beg your pardon?" Kael turned to face her fully, and even Elara felt the weight of his attention shift like a physical thing. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You claim it's perfume. She claims it's poison. Test it, now." "That's absurd," Corwin blustered. "We don't need to prove anything to—" "You're right. You don't." Kael's smile was a terrible thing, all teeth and promise of violence. "But I'm asking, and when I ask for something, wolves tend to be very accommodating. Unless you'd prefer I take the vial to my own people for testing. I have 3 witches in my retinue who could tell me exactly what's in that bottle within the hour. Of course, if it is poison, I'd have to ask myself why Aluna would have Moonsbane, and why she'd be so desperate to brand an Omega as a thief, rather than let the truth come out." The silence that followed was deafening. At a 1.1 ace, Vivian's perfect composure cracked. Just for a second, a flash of pure panic across her features before she smoothed it away. But Elara saw it, and more importantly, Kael saw it. He moved so fast it was almost a blur, crossing the distance to snatch the vial from the cushion before the guard could react. He pulled the stopper, and even from several feet away, Elara caught the scent, bitter almonds, and something acrid that made her eyes water. "Perfume," Kael said flatly. "Interesting choice. Most wolves prefer scents that don't smell like cyanide and wolfsbane extract." He looked at Vivian with eyes gone cold as winter stars. "Want to test your claim? Take a drink. Just a sip. If it's perfume, it'll taste terrible, but won't hurt you." At a 1 point, Vivian took a step back. Then another. That's ridiculous. I won't be bullied into—" "She's guilty." Kael's pronouncement rang through the hall like a bell. "And you all know it. You were going to exile an innocent Omega, brand her as a thief, and send her out to die to cover up an attempted murder." His gaze swept the assembled pack, and wolves looked away, unable to meet those burning eyes. "Is this what the Silverpaw Pack has become? So corrupt that you'd sacrifice your weakest member to protect a would-be killer?" "You have no authority here." Corwin's face had gone purple. "This is my pack, my—" "She saved your life." 4 words, spoken quietly. But they stopped Corwin mid-rant. Kael looked at Elara, and something in his expression made her chest ache. "She found the poison meant for you. She took it, knowing she'd be accused, because it was the only way to stop your mate from killing you. And your gratitude is exile and a brand?" He shook his head slowly. "You don't deserve her mercy." Elara's eyes widened. How did he? "I can smell truth and lies," Kael said, as if hearing her unspoken question. "It's a gift, or a curse. Right now, looking at you, smelling your fear and your goodness and your absolute terror," his voice roughened, dropped to something almost reverent. "Right now, it's a gift, because it led me here, to you." He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, and then he was cupping her face in hands that were calloused and warm and so gentle she wanted to weep. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones, and his eyes searched hers with an intensity that felt like drowning. "I came here for a political alliance," he said softly, speaking only to her, though his voice carried through the silent hall. "Corwin petitioned me for protection from the Eastern Packs. I was going to refuse. I don't ally with weak alphas. But then I walked past your borders, and I caught a scent. His eyes fluttered closed for just a second, and when they opened, they were blazing. Honeysuckle and rain, and something I've been searching for my entire God's damned life without knowing it. I tracked it here, to you, to this moment. Elara's hands trembled as she signed. I don't understand. Mate, he breathed, and the word detonated through the room like a bomb. Gasps, shouts, the sound of chairs scraping as wolves leaped to their feet. You're my mate, my fated Luna, and they were going to brand you, exile you, throw you away like garbage. The rage that rolled off him was apocalyptic. The chandeliers swayed. Cracks spiderwebbed across the nearest windows. Every wolf in the room felt their alpha power like a hand around their throats, squeezing, reminding them exactly how far beneath him they truly were. Here's what's going to happen, Kael announced, his voice cutting through the chaos with absolute authority. Elara is mine. I'm claiming her, here and now, in front of all of you as witnesses. She is my Luna, my queen, and anyone who has ever raised a hand to her, anyone who has ever made her feel less than precious, will answer to me personally. He turned his attention back to her, and his expression softened into something that made her heart stutter. If you'll have me, I know this is fast, I know you don't know me, but I swear on my life, on my crown, on everything I am, I will spend every day proving that fate knew exactly what it was doing when it led me to you. Elara stared up at him, her mind reeling. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to girls like her. Omegas who scrubbed floors and slept in closets and had no voice to even speak their own names. Fate didn't. But his hands on her face were real. The bond she could feel forming between them, delicate and new and right, was real. The way her wolf was singing for the first time in her memory was real. She lifted, shaking hands, and signed, yes. As Kael's face transformed, the hardness melted away, replaced by something so raw and joyful it was almost painful to witness. He pulled her close, one hand sliding into her hair, the other wrapping around her waist, and he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was claiming and promise and forever all at once, and when his teeth grazed her lower lip, she felt the bond snap into place like a lock finding its key. Gold light exploded around them, the visible manifestation of a true mate bond, rare and precious and undeniable. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against hers, and he was breathing hard. Mine, he whispered. Finally, finally mine. Then he bit her. Right there, in front of everyone, he tilted her head to the side and set his teeth to the junction of her neck and shoulder, the traditional claiming mark. The pain was bright and sharp and perfect, and when he licked the wound closed, the bond solidified into something unbreakable. She was Luna. Not just his mate, not just claimed, but Luna, marked and sealed and recognized by every wolf in the room, whether they wanted to acknowledge it or not. Kael turned to face the pack, keeping Elara tucked against his side, his arm an iron band around her waist. Blood, her blood, stained his lips, and he didn't bother to wipe it away. He wore it like war paint. "Let me be absolutely clear," he said, his voice ringing with command. "Elara Ashenblade is my Luna and your queen. The alliance Corwin wanted, he just lost it. But I'm a generous king. I'll give you a choice, Silverpaw Pack. You can bend the knee to her right now, apologize for every indignity, every cruelty, every moment you made her feel worthless. Or you can be my enemy, and trust me when I say you don't want to be my enemy." The silence stretched. Elara could feel the weight of 200 stares, the shock and disbelief, and, in some cases, dawning horror as wolves realized exactly how badly they'd miscalculated. The first to move was an older Omega woman who'd sometimes snuck Elara extra food from the kitchens. She dropped to one knee, head bowed. "Forgive me, Luna. I should have done more." Then another, and another. Like dominoes falling, the pack began to kneel. Some readily, some reluctantly, but all of them acknowledging the new reality. Corwin remained standing, his face a mask of impotent rage. Vivian beside him had gone white as snow. Kael's smile was razor sharp. "No? Pity." He looked at his Luna, his expression softening. "Do you want justice, love? I'll give you anything. Their pack, their lives, their groveling apologies. Name it. Let them live with their shame. That's punishment enough." Kael laughed, a sound of pure delight. "Merciful, even now. Gods, you're going to make me a better man, aren't you?" He pressed a kiss to her temple, then addressed the room one final time. "You heard your Luna. She grants you mercy you don't deserve. But know this, I have a long memory. And if I ever hear that any of you have mistreated another Omega, another wolf who can't defend themselves, I will return, and I won't be so kind." He swept Elara into his arms as if she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady, and feel the rumble of satisfaction in his chest. "Let's go home," he murmured against her hair. "I have a kingdom that's been waiting to meet their queen. And you have a voice to find." She pulled back slightly, confused. He tapped her throat gently. "I have healers, witches. If there's any way to repair the damage, we'll find it. And if there isn't," his eyes blazed with fierce devotion, "then I'll learn every sign, every gesture, every expression, until I can read you like a book. You will never be unheard again. I promise you that." As he carried her out through the shattered doors, past the ruined entrance, and into the cool night air where his wolves waited, 100 strong, all of them watching their king with knowing smiles, Elara finally let herself believe it. She was safe. She was claimed. She was home. And the Silverpaw Pack, left kneeling in their ruined hall, would spend the rest of their lives knowing they'd thrown away something precious and irreplaceable. 6 months later, Elara stood on the balcony of the Ashenblade Keep, watching the northern lights paint the sky in shades of green and violet. Behind her, she could hear Kael dealing with the day's petitions, his voice firm but fair, always fair. Her hand rose to touch the scar on her throat. The witches had tried, but the damage was too old, too complete. She would never speak with her voice. But she'd found others. Kael had declared that all his wolves would learn sign language. It was now taught alongside reading and writing in their schools. And when she'd shyly suggested that they could offer sanctuary to other displaced Omegas, other wolves who'd been cast aside by their packs, he'd built an entire wing of the keep to house them. The Ashenblade kingdom had become known not just for its fierce warriors, but for its radical compassion, for its Luna who'd been broken and remade, who understood suffering and chose mercy anyway. She felt him before she heard him, the bond always singing between them, a constant awareness of his presence. Strong arms wrapped around her waist, and Kael's chin came to rest on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. She signed against his arm. Fate. And what about fate? That it's the great equalizer. I was nothing. You were everything. And yet, here we are. "You were never nothing," he said fiercely, turning her to face him. "You were always everything. The world just hadn't caught up yet." He kissed her softly, reverently. "I'm the lucky one, Elara. Every single day, I thank the gods that I walked through those doors, that I found you." She smiled and signed. "We found each other." "Yeah," he breathed, pulling her close. "We did." True strength isn't found in power or status or the ability to speak the loudest. It's found in mercy when you have every right to seek vengeance, in choosing kindness when the world has shown you only cruelty. Fate doesn't care about your rank or your voice or your past. It cares about your soul. And sometimes the most broken among us are exactly who destiny has been waiting for all along. So I ask you, have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever been the Omega in a room full of alphas? And when your moment came, when fate finally recognized you, did you choose mercy or vengeance? Tell me in the comments. Because the world needs more wolves who remember what it's like to kneel, who rise and extend a hand instead of a claw.